You're listening to a show on the Planet Film podcast feed.
Hi, I'm Sean Monk.
And I'm TJ Cornwell.
And this is the Planet Council podcast.
All right, so this week, sorry about the late episode. You probably saw Sean posted, or it came from either our Twitter as well, that this episode is going to be late just due to some technical difficulties. We seem to have those sorted out pretty much, but I don't know, something could pop up, so it might take a little longer. You never know. But we'll get it edited and out to you guys probably, I want to say hopefully, Sunday, right?
Yeah, like Sunday.
Okay. Yeah. This is pretty light. There was no really news this week. Last week we talked about the Star Wars Celebration cancellation. We talked about Star Wars Squadrons, the new game. But this week we didn't really have much, so we're just going to jump right into the reviews of Mandalorian episode 3 and 4. So first we're going to jump into episode 3.
All right, so episode 3, it's called The Sin, directed by Deborah Chow, kind of heralded as the best of the earlier half of the season. Mm-hmm. A lot of great action in this one, a lot of great story and character moments as well. And a lot of great acting too, along with the action. Yeah. And then obviously fantastic direction with Deborah Chow. This one definitely, it was announced prior to the first season of Mando airing that Deborah Chow would be helming the entire Obi-Wan series. She, as of right now, she's still attached to that. She says that she's very excited, but seems
one day that'll come out.
Yeah. Also, it seems like we don't really know, or even people at Lucasfilm don't really know what form that show is going to take. Mm-hmm. Who knows? We could be getting Kenobi, a Star Wars story in theaters, directed by Deborah Chow. At this point, I don't know. But nevertheless, Deborah Chow directed this episode. And so just starting off, what would you say your initial impressions were watching this episode? First time you watched it and then, rewatching it again now.
So when I first watched it, I, again, probably thought it was like a really solid episode. When I rewatched it, I actually liked it a lot more. Really? I don't know why I remembered the ending. I don't know are we doing spoiler, non-spoiler stuff, or are we just kind of getting into it?
You can do just spoilers. I mean, if you're listening to the show, yeah.
You probably should have watched it by now. But so when he's fighting, when he steals Baby Yoda back and he's fighting out of the little town, mm-hmm. I remember that being slower for some reason. I don't know why. But I really appreciated all the action and the just the fighting in general. I like the live action fight choreography. Mm-hmm. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a really good episode.
Now, I do have a theory about this, why you like this episode better.
Okay.
Because I'll say my first initial thoughts and my thoughts on this watch, and then I'll give the theory of what I think. To me, this episode was the best of... I think this is the second best episode of the show so far.
Okay, so out of the 4 episodes we've rewatched, or out of
no, out of all 8.
Okay,
I think this is the second best episode of the show, and I think that because the same reason what I thought when I first watched it back in when was this? This would have been December, right? First week of December, or maybe last week of November, whatever it was. Which is this episode more than any of the other ones feels like which is ironic because he didn't direct it, but feels like a live action Rebels or Clone Wars episode. You know what I mean? It just has that feel to it.
Yeah.
With the visuals that you saw and everything, especially one of the awesomest nerd moments, or whatever you want to call it, Star Wars moments, is at the end of this episode when up over the archway, all the Mandalorians fly in with their jetpacks and just open fire and help get him out of there to help rescue him and Baby Yoda. Yeah. And, kind of jumping ahead in the episode, you have that great moment between Paz Vizsla, again played by Jon Favreau, who played Pre Vizsla, his grandfather or father, whatever the relation is there. especially with the interaction between the two of them earlier in the episode, just had a very Clone Wars-y, Rebels-y feel to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is why you like this more, because the first time you saw it, you did not have the context of Clone Wars, Rebels in your head.
Yeah.
And now you're watching and you do. That's just my take on why you might have liked it more, because that's definitely the one thing in this that sticks out to me is definitely, it's the most, it's the episode that feels the most like the animated shows that came before. So that's our final thoughts, our opening thoughts out of the way, first impressions out of the way. So let's just go ahead and we're just going to dive into the overall flow of the episode, starting off with really kind of the first chunk that we see is, Mando comes in back to the town and basically brings the child back to the client, back to Werner Herzog's character, and they kind of have an interaction there. So what were your overall thoughts on that scene with Werner Herzog? Definitely very tension filled.
Yeah.
That's the scene where he's like, unfortunately the metal is easier to come by than the Mandalorians, and kind of sets off Mando at that point. Would you?
Yeah. First, like that first scene when they're on the ship and Baby Yoda's trying to eat the little cap for the lever.
Oh, that's true.
It's one of the cutest things.
Yeah,
oh my god.
Takes that, yeah.
No, I thought it was a really good intro to the episode. Can you tell me who Herzog? What's his who is he? Who's his character?
We don't really know at this point.
Okay, I wasn't sure if just.
Yeah, no, we just know that he's obviously ex-Empire, ex-high-ranking. Ex-high-ranking Empire, obviously.
Yeah.
He's got the Empire gold.
Yeah, because it's I'm sitting here and I'm it's just occurring to me. I'm how did he get all these stormtroopers? And just stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was cool to see if you have watched the documentary episodes. So this one episode they talk about I think it's an ice cream maker or is it an ice maker? I forget which one it is.
Oh yeah, the ice cream. Will Rowe Hood, yeah.
When Werner Herzog's his character takes out the I don't even know. It's like a cylinder type thing.
Yeah, it's an ice cream maker.
Yeah, and he pulls it out and he opens it and there's all the credits and
the best car.
Yeah. It's just cool to see stuff they're talking about in the documentary in the actual episode. But I think it was this scene I wrote. Well, first he's when he brings in Baby Yoda, he goes, yes. He says yes 5-6 times. I thought it was hilarious. But when they're taking Baby Yoda away, and they kind of zoom in on the Mando's face, you obviously can't see his face because he has a helmet on, but they were talking about in the doc, you can actually feel the emotion of something that's not giving you anything.
Yeah.
Which I think is just brilliant. You can also hear it in Pedro Pascal's voice when he's doing the VO as well. But yeah, I thought it was a really good opening scene.
Yeah, I think that's something where it's probably going to be a common theme across this whole season of reviews. That there's a lot of moments where each director individually and all of them together, with Favreau and Filoni running the whole show, it's amazing and it's exactly what you said. They talked about it heavily in the roundtable segments of the documentary. And I think it was Carl Weathers who said, it's amazing that, you take away the eyes. There's so much that you can see there, and yet you don't lose any of that just by the framing and, how long they hold the shot. You get everything that you would normally get from a human eye just by watching the helmet. And that comes up so many times throughout the season. But that is definitely one of the best ones. Also, I think the next episode that we're going to review, Sanctuary, in a little bit, has another great moment where it's just a zoom in on the helmet, or I should say a shot of his helmet. That really just helps. Again, you're not looking at his face at all. It really just conveys, you almost see the gears turning. I think we used that term in our first review. That you can really almost see the gears turning through the helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, you have the little bit of the back and forth that's going to come up later between the client and the doctor whose last name I am forgetting right now, but He's the one that he has the Camino symbols on,
Okay.
the Camino cloning
Yeah.
symbols on his jacket. The one that's like taking care of the child. You have a little bit of back and forth that's going to come up later between them, where they kind of aren't agreeing on stuff. Like he says, "Oh, you brought it alive," and he's like, "Well, it was always supposed to be alive."
Yeah.
And like you could tell for some reason Werner Herzog's character just wants it gone. You know what I mean? He just wants the baby gone. And so then after he gets that stuff, he heads back to the underground section, back to the armorer, the female Mandalorian armorer that we met earlier in the season, brings the rest of the Beskar to her, and basically he has enough and more so to make a full suit, a full Beskar suit of armor. And then you get what I call the Beskar acid flashbacks of every time it slams down, you get the flashbacks to the Clone Wars, to Din Djarin as a kid. We still don't know what planet he was on. It definitely wasn't Mandalore.
Yeah.
But we still don't know what planet he was on when the Separatists attacked, because clearly that's where his hatred of droids comes from, is the battle droids and everything from his childhood.
Yeah.
Roger and all that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that whole sequence, getting to see again the flashbacks that he's having every time you hear that?
Yeah.
What are your whole thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on the actual technique of that? Of that being our delivery device for his kind of flashbacks to fill in some of that character?
Yeah. I think I actually kind of like the flashbacks. I mean, every episode that they show them, it kind of builds on the story of his background. So like,
like it's never the same shot twice.
Yeah, it was like the first or second episode that they had it for the first time.
It was the very first episode. Yeah, because when he took the job. Yeah.
So it's like in the first that episode they show him as a kid. He's running with his parents and they put him in the bunker thing, and then the next episode they use it. They build on a little bit more. So, he's in there and then he hears like a gunshot and the droid opens up and then it stops there. And then, as it just keeps going. I like how they like smelt the credits and stuff. I just think that looks cool.
Yeah.
I liked how she was like, well, do you want what is it?
The signet?
Signet, yeah.
Yeah.
He was like, well, I don't want to use that one. She's like, okay, well, I'll give you whatever. I forget what those things were called.
The Mudhorn. And he says, she says, all right, then that'll be your signet. You've earned it.
Yeah.
And he basically says, I don't want that one. Yeah. And he says he was helped by an enemy.
Yeah. Which again, I think like you're trying to, when they're writing this, they're building the blocks of the Mandalorian or what it means to be a Mandalorian. And it's like, well, I got help from, they don't know they were my enemy.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know that they were mine. Exactly.
Like he says, it's not an honorary kill or something like that. So it's like, I kill it by myself. So, I can't take this as like a reward for doing
I can't take it as like a victory.
Basically. Yeah, exactly. And they all seem to be like all the other Mandalorians in that, on a little underground thing seem to be very jealous.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to what I talked about in my initial thoughts with the Paz Vizsla character.
Yeah.
Again, Jon Favreau having voiced pre-Vizsla in the Clone Wars, now he's doing Paz Vizsla here. I was trying to look this time at the armor to see if maybe it was Favreau under the armor. He is like, Paz Vizsla is a bigger, like bulkier build guy. So I mean, it very well could be him, but it just as easily could just be a voiceover. But still, awesome to see Favreau coming back to play another Vizsla. Hopefully, this one is better in a fight. So Paz Vizsla comes up to him and he is not happy because the Beskar that the Empire was using as the credits is the Beskar, obviously, that the client pays him in because that's what he has. And Paz Vizsla sees the Imperial symbol on the Beskar, and he's like, these were spoils taken from us, and you're doing the Empire's bidding just to get it back for yourself.
Yeah.
And that is not, that is not flying with him. So he gets super pissed. They get into a physical fight, and it ends basically with them having like vibro blades up to their neck, which, by the way, I don't know if I missed it or what, but I don't know if you caught it, but the visual effect on the vibro blades looked amazing. Like, because they have the blades up to their neck, and the actual blade is shaking and stuttering. Yeah. I just thought they were regular knives the first time I watched the episode. I don't know why I missed that, but it looked awesome because obviously we've seen vibro blades talked about in books and in Rebels and stuff before. But it was just really, it was freaky, but cool to see that effect in live action. And then, like we said, then they finally are like, have you ever taken your helmet off in front of someone else? Has it ever been taken off of you? He says, no. And then they kind of, this is the way. They all calm down. So then after
kind of
that,
like it's almost like, listen, we're all in this together.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
kind of for like, let's just calm down here.
Yeah, kind of like the, like if we start fighting each other, we're going to lose sight of
Our
preserving the tribe, basically. Yeah. And then, like we said, that gets us to him making the armor with the flashbacks. And then also we get we get the mention of he has basically a choice to craft some of the excess Beskar into weapons, and he chooses the whistling birds, which is the forearm mounted little like pellet, basically, little like rocket bullet type things. And so he does that, and she says, they're very rare. Like, do not she has to put them in with like tweezers or so he chooses to go with those, and then he's all tricked out and decked out. He leaves, goes back to the cantina or the bar, whatever, Grief Karga's main hangout. And as soon as he walks in, you see the shot is like beautiful. He's got the banging, brand spanking new silver Beskar armor. Everyone in the place stares at him, and you just have Carl Weathers screaming "Mando!" like that. Just he is so happy with him. And then Mando is pissed because obviously with the Trandoshan's in the last episode trying to kill him to get the baby, with IG-11 trying to kill him, he's like, how many of these people had tracking fobs? Like because he's pissed because he's like, what the hell? You told me this was like some secret job. And he's like, they all had him. He's like, everyone had him. And he's like, what? And he like, of course, Carl Weathers is he's trying to play it up as like, but it's okay, you did it. Someone else could, And then he pulls out the Beskar from his pocket and then puts it back in. And he says, even I'm rich, which is great. And then Mando immediately, because he's so broken up about having to give up Baby Yoda to the client, because he doesn't know what he's going to do with it, just wants to throw himself back in his work. So he asks, what bounties do you have, and what are some of the harder ones? Like, he says, the further the better, the further out the better, because he just does not want to be there, doesn't want to think about it. So then he walks away, but then he turns back and he says, what are they going to do with it? The kid. And Carl Weathers says, that's against guild code. I can't ask them what they're going to do, and they don't have to tell me. And so he walks off. So he just goes to the ship. He's done with everything. He starts up the engines and everything, reaches forward onto the console to pull the arm or the lever back to start the engines, and he realizes that the little ball that the child was playing with is gone. And it gets him thinking about it. And this is, again, in the same episode, one of those moments where you can't see anything in his face, but he's just going about just like we've seen him do multiple
Yeah.
times, turning all the buttons and levers and stuff to take off, and he
Yeah.
just freezes. Like,
There's-
literally just freezes.
Yeah, and when he's getting up, there's one part, I think it's like towards the end of that like little shot where I just like look at him and I know he's just like this. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
he
exactly.
just sighs, is like, I guess I should go like go get this kid.
Yeah, because you could tell, like, you can tell that he cares about the child, like,
Yeah.
genuinely so much. You can tell B, he's pissed that he gave it up in the first place.
Mhm.
Because obviously you can tell he knew that was not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, not the best situation to do. Although he did take the payment for it. So he does that. So he goes back for him, and he knows the only way I'm getting this kid out is, I think maybe he goes there with a hope, a distant hope in his mind that he'll be able to like talk to him or something to give him back to him. But then as he's going, he sees behind the building in a dumpster the pod that the child is in. Well, not in anymore. They tossed it out. So that sets him off. So he goes in there, guns blazing. The little like the little thing that like
the Jabba the Hutt thing
rips out. Yeah. The little doorbell guy.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. And he just goes crazy. So what did you think about that whole scene with him? Storming the trenches, taking out everybody, and getting the child back.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I thought there was a lot of good combat choreography. There's the one where I think he sneaks in and they don't see him yet, and he like harpoons the guy and he pulls him back and he stabs him as he comes back. I was like, oh, that was brutal. I just and it was funny because when he's like walking in after he's gotten Baby Yoda back, he like walks into a room and two stormtroopers come in at the same time and he like kills the lights. And watching the stormtroopers, it was funny because watching the stormtroopers put on their flashlights reminded me of when we're playing like Ewok Hunt in Battlefront 2.
Oh yeah,
and they're just like nervous, like, whoa,
oh no, it's a trap.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I thought it was cool how he like exploded the wall and everything, and then there was a lot of like different little like the Easter egg with the ice cream machine, the Easter egg with the thing that comes out of the wall. It's like, and then the like I don't even know what you would call it, like the little surgeon bot thing in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah,
is also in this
like,
scene.
Interrogation.
Bro. Yeah.
The one that Vader uses on his daughter.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was I liked the entire, like, because I in my head I'm like, finally some like, some really good like action, and the action lasts like the entire episode, if we're going to be honest. From that point on, which I think is like at that point there's probably like 20 minutes or so or 15 left in the episode. It's just action.
So also I just want to jump back a couple minutes. I forgot to mention when he leaves his ship, he stakes out on the roof, and that's when he listens in on the conversation. And that it still has yet to come up. That particular threat has yet to come up, but that's when he hears the conversation with the client, where he's saying, just extract the material necessary and be done with it. So it's like, you don't really know what that means. We thought maybe we would get that answered in this season. It seems like we haven't yet. But, there's definitely going to be a lot more with the end game of the child in this whole show. But just wanted to make sure we talked about that little moment. And I think that moment kind of helps him not kill the doctor when he gets in there and sees the interrogation droid. And the doctor says, I'm the only reason he's alive right now. I think that conversation that he overheard kind of helps him, say, all right, I'm going to let this guy live.
We got to let this guy live,
Not that, that means he's a good guy at all, but, he doesn't deserve to die because he's just trying to do the best in the situation. Another thing, too, I just want to talk about when he finally has the child and he's dealing with those two stormtroopers, like you said, the one when he just pulls out the flamethrower, torches him.
Oh, yeah, that was brutal. And that's what I was talking about in the when we were talking about the second episode, is like I want the brutality of it. Like, don't like I said, it stays on it for the entire thing where he's just torching him,
Yeah.
And then you see that he's just like
And then
a
he
pile
falls
of ash.
he falls into frame, and they hold on like the ashy helmet for a long time. I was like surprised. It was like 10 seconds that they held that shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was awesome. And then you think you get there, you're done. He's got the child. You're like, wow, what a fantastic, what a great episode. Deborah Chow, she's the best.
Yeah.
Wow, that action was great. Now we're back to the ship and we're out of here. Nope. He gets to the street to go back to his ship, the Razor Crest, and he is met with some opposition. So, first of all, and I know Deborah Chow talked about this in the documentary, but very much, this scene, very reminiscent of, Kurosawa movies, which obviously we'll talk about next episode, but this one more harkens back to the Yojimbo type, John Wayne, kind of Clint Eastwood, one man against insurmountable odds type thing. Basically, every member of the guild that is in the city comes up, led by Grief Karga, Carl Weathers, and they're not going to let him leave.
Nope.
He says, you got to go through all of us if you want to get him out of here.
Yeah.
What were some of your favorite? Because then, like TJ said, the rest of the episode is just getting from one end of the street to the other. Is the whole rest of their episode. What are some of your favorite moments from that? Maybe some of your favorite action moments?
Yeah, obviously, like you said, when the Mandalorians come out towards the end and they come and, kind of save the day. When he whips out that, blaster, he's like, Carl Weathers is like, just set the package, the bounty down on the I don't even know what it's called, car, whatever you want to call it.
Like the speeder.
Yeah. And he's like walking towards, and then he he's like thinking, you could see it again in the helmet. They're staying on the helmet. You could see it in his head. And he just whips out his blaster and shoots the first guy. I was like, oh, and then it just kicks off. And then I always thought it was funny when he yells at the droid to drive, and the droid's like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, drive.
And then he goes.
Yeah.
I love that.
But yeah, it's definitely, I mean, in your head, you might kind of be like, okay, somebody's going to happen here where it's somebody's going to save the day or something but it starts to get to the point where it's like, okay, he's definitely pinned down. What is going to happen here? Yeah,
because you think maybe that he's going to escape, because when he tells droid to drive, it
takes off. Yeah.
But when the rest of the guild, of course, is firing at Mando and trying to get him and stuff, Carl Weathers aims up, takes the shot, and takes out the droid, which stops him dead in his tracks. Probably about 20 feet or so from, where he could get to the ship. So he's, pinned down there, and there are people closing in all over the place. And that's when you get the boom, the music swell with the Mandalorian theme. And you just see all the Mandalorians, or at least most of the Mandalorians from the underground area, come up over that archway and just descend on the guild members, just wiping them out. And then that gives the opening that basically Mando needs, and that's when it gets to the little exchange between him and Paz Vizsla. Kind of, you could tell they kind of buried the hatchet, because they both say,
which again is it's like a thing where it shows that we may have our fights or whatever, but we're in this together.
Exactly, yeah. And then they both give each other the salute and say, this is the way, this is the way. And then Mando's able to escape, gets on the ship, and then down from the ladder inside the Razor Crest is Carl Weathers, who is saying, I got you now. I got you, and Mando, giving no F's whatsoever, pulls out his gun, shoots him right in the chest, because he says, at this point, this is all or nothing. I'm not letting anybody take this. So at that point, you think Grief Karga's dead. So so Mando takes off. He goes up into the sky. You have a little great moment where, again, Paz Vizsla flies up next to the Razor Crest to kind of bid him off, and Mando says, I got to get me one of those type thing. And then you cut back to Grief Karga. Of course, you realize they're not going to kill off Carl Weathers.
Yeah.
He pulls out it right behind the blaster bolt. He pulls out the Beskar
Yep.
that he showed him earlier. Now, I want your thoughts on this because I have a theory on this. Do you think Mando shot him there knowing the Beskar was there just to get him out, or do you think he was trying to kill him?
I'm going to say that he shot him there because he knew that was there because, throughout so far through the episodes, you feel like they've had a really good relationship and they go back almost.
Yeah.
So I feel like, to kill him, I feel it would be obviously it'd be oh, well, he's cutthroat. He doesn't care. Whatever he's doing is best for, whatever's best for him, he's doing. But they haven't really showed that about Mandalorian in general, in my opinion.
I feel like killing Grief would have been crossing the line for him.
Yeah.
The difference between being cutthroat, willing to do whatever to make sure that the baby survives, and killing somebody who clearly, like you said, has been either in a partner or a mentorship role to him.
Yeah.
For clearly a long amount of time. And also another thing, so just to say, I agree. I definitely think he shot him precisely there to get him off the ship, basically.
Yeah.
Also because he showed it to him literally an hour ago.
He did.
It was literally an hour ago. Yeah. And then he shows him and he puts it right back in under his pocket. So
and that's another thing with Grief Karga's probably, he pulls it out and it's he probably knew that was there, He could have shot me anywhere else, literally anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of lets us see into there's a change. We'll do spoilers for these episodes, but later in the season, if you're not caught up yet or whatever, there is a change that comes with Grief Karga's character that this kind of helps along a little bit. But we'll talk about that when we get to the later episodes. So overall, episode 3, The Sin, directed by Deborah Chow. What are your final thoughts if you had to sum it up in a sentence or two?
I actually wrote something down. I said, overall, a great episode that had a lot of good action and confliction from Mando. Great job, Deborah Chow.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah, I would say standouts in this episode is definitely also, one thing that we did not talk about really quick, in that exchange between Paz Vizsla and Mando, he says, now that we're exposed now. And that's when Paz Vizsla says, this is the way, it's what we had to do. So now their position has been given up, the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
So that, we'll see if that comes up later. But yeah, I think definitely strong points for this is definitely, I think this is a great Grief Karga episode. I think Carl Weathers really has the opportunity to shine and, shed more light into his character. I'd have to assume in the documentary, they do talk about when Grief Karga was originally brought on, he was going to be killed in his second episode. So my guess is that what happened was just supposed to happen, but he was supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm assuming.
That's funny because in the documentary, he's like, yeah, we're going to kill him off second episode. And we go,
yeah,
we can't kill this guy off.
Yeah, exactly. Which, yeah, definitely. If they had killed him off, I mean, the show, without Carl Weathers, it would have been, he just adds so much to this. It's crazy. And some of his best moments are still yet to come. So I would say overall, fantastic episode. Like I said, this is probably my second favorite of the series so far. But yeah, really, really great. So with that, that's going to wrap up our review for episode 3, The Sin, directed by Deborah Chow. So we will be right back in just a moment. All right, and welcome back to the Planet Council podcast. We just wrapped up our review for episode 3, The Sin, directed by Deborah Chow. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about episode 4 of Mandalorian Season 1, titled Sanctuary. This one is directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. And just to talk about right at the start here, in live action before, these 2 episodes are the first 2 live action anything Star Wars directed by women. And I think it goes to show, that, obviously, fantastic. And really, majorly, I'm not sure, if she's done commercial work or smaller stuff, but majorly, this is the first thing that Bryce Dallas Howard has directed, period.
Oh, really? I thought she did something like else
on this scale. Like, I'm not sure. She might have done like small TV and stuff, but like she definitely hasn't directed like features.
I was to say, I figured she just directed a movie before.
No, this was like her shot. Yeah, okay. And like I said, I don't know if she's done smaller TV or commercial stuff, but for this being her first time out of the gate, I think the direction in this episode is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's what really stands out here is obviously the story-wise, it's really great for this episode. There's some great character moments. I think the story of this episode falls just a little bit only because it is so obviously influenced by Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
But that being said, that's where I think the direction really picks up the slack and helps out. Is because you could really come away from this episode just kind of with let's call it Joker syndrome, where you're like, oh, I like that when I saw it in Seven Samurai. You know what I mean? Like, like with Joker, like, oh, I liked it better when it was Taxi Driver type talk. But I really think what pulls it back from that and makes it very unique is her directing style, and what she brings to it. So what would you say? Those would be my initial thoughts on watching it. And I kind of had basically the same overall thoughts watching it again now as I did the first time. Very solid episode. It's not like my favorite one or anything like that, but I think it's a really solid episode and really great character stuff in this. What would you say your initial reactions are?
I think when I first watched it, however many months ago when it came out, I was a big fan of it. Obviously, it is so much influenced by, like you said, Akira Kurosawa and Seven Samurai. I could have sworn that I heard when this episode first came out, wasn't it one of the less liked ones? I remember it being like people saying they weren't that big of a fan of it, and of course, I was like, I love this episode. I thought it was great. But yeah, I don't know.
I think what it was like I said at the beginning of the last review. I think it was like, whoa, episode 1, that was amazing. Like, Dave Filoni's first live action, like, this is so great. Like, oh my God. Episode 2 was like, this is even better.
Yeah.
Episode 3 was like, oh my God. Like, Deborah Chow is like amazing. Like, the action in this show. And then this one was just kind of like, okay, we're kind of just going back down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, we're kind of off the high. We're out of the honeymoon stage. Of the show, you know what I mean? And I think. Oh, sorry, just one sec. I think what really started to set in with this episode was what I think up until the last episode of the show, those like middle 4 weeks, the show got a lot of flack and had a lot of conversation about what are we building to here? Is all of this just like not connecting? Like, are we not going somewhere with all this? So I think that's maybe too where people had some issues with it, but I was definitely in your camp. I didn't not like it. I just thought it was a really great episode.
Yeah. The other thing about the episode that there was a lot of, maybe not a lot of, but there was a decent amount of comedic moments where obviously you have the opening scene. Well, I mean, we'll get to it, but when Baby Yoda keeps flipping the switch and. He flips it the one last time, the whole ship shakes, and it became this meme for like a few weeks where people were placing it with music and stuff. And probably the biggest I remember because when I first watched the episode, I remember probably the biggest laugh I've had the whole series is when Mando and Gina Carano are fighting, and they pull out their blasters, they're laying on the ground, you just hear. Oh yeah, and it just pans Baby Yoda sitting there just like drinking soup. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a very solid episode. I think I'd have to once we get through the whole thing, I'd have to think about it more clearly. But I think 3 and 4, honestly, are probably 2 of my favorites so far that we've rewatched.
That we reviewed.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd probably have to go 3 number 1, 4 number 2.
Mhm.
But
I think I would agree. Out of the ones
Yeah.
that we've reviewed so far, I would say this is my second favorite.
yeah. But yeah, I think overall for like somebody who's never directed really before, going straight into TV that has a lot of action scenes. Overall, I thought it was just like a solid. I mean, there's one like, again, it's probably like just in the script. There's like just one thing, unless that's how they set up the shot, and I thought it was dumb. There's just one thing that I have like a little small.
Is this the thing you were telling me about?
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, okay.
I like because after I watched it again, I thought it was at the end of the episode. It's actually like in the middle.
Mhm.
But it's like one small like thing that I was kind of like, okay, well, you just said this, but now you're doing this.
Mhm.
But yeah, overall, I thought it was a solid episode.
So I sorry, I just wanted to say. I just pulled up Bryce Dallas Howard here. She had, like I said, she has only directed a few shorts. So
Okay.
she directed one short in 2006, another one in 2011, and then a short called Soulmates in 2015. So that's really it. But then after this, it says here that this was before, but I'm pretty sure this was released after. She did a documentary for it was after Mandalorian. She did for Apple TV Plus. She directed a documentary called Dads.
Okay. I think I heard about that.
Yeah, it just came out for Father's Day.
Okay.
So basically, I'm not really sure if she got that because of her
Mando.
on Mando, or if it was like she just got both chances at the same time. But either way, yeah, definitely first time on anything this scale. Especially when you watch the documentary stuff with the volume and the shooting style of this.
And she's in the documentary a lot. Like you see her even in like when it's just like John talking, and it's him and Dave on the set. She's always there. Like it seems like she was there a lot.
she really lent an interesting perspective because. For those who don't know, and the documentary talks about this a lot I believe it was the very first episode was on the directors, that this episode, rather than have the way that TV normally works is that you have one showrunner who, in this case is kind of a joint showrunner with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. And then they pick the directors, and the directors come in, kind of learn the dynamic of the show, meet the actors type thing, direct the episode, and then they're out.
Yeah.
The way that this show was made from the very early stages was they picked all the directors, and throughout the entire thing, their episode or not, it was constant collaboration between all of the directors.
Yeah.
So I think that's why, too, you get someone, and there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff in there, with both Deborah Chow on set of this episode and Bryce on the set of the last episode, as well as a couple others too. But you can really tell, I think, just based on the kind of incubator nature of this show, with all of them working so closely together, I think you can really tell, she kind of learned a lot from them, especially in the style of this show.
Yeah.
But
maybe collaboration sounds like, a certain other movie trilogy. Probably should have taken notes on that one. Sorry. Okay, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
You're like, well, I'm going to cut that.
Hashtag ruin Johnson. No. I have a Knives Out poster right there. Okay.
Oh boy.
So let's go ahead and start with going through the episode.
Okay.
So it starts off. You're kind of like, what am I watching right now? Because you're just kind of in this village. They're getting fish. They're fishing in baskets. These bright blue fish. And then all of a sudden, gunfire, crazy stuff. People running out. They look like orcs from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that's. I thought the exact same thing. I go, if I didn't know better, this could be a Lord of the Rings type movie or episode or.
I was meaning when I was watching it to look up the species of that like leader of the like pirates or thugs or whatever. To look up like what the hell that was. Because he looked like a mix between an orc and a dog. You know what I mean? Like if that makes any sense. But then again, it's Star Wars, so nothing really has to make sense. But yeah, so you see, basically they are attacked. You see this one mother and a child. You're not sure if it's her child. I don't think it's her child, but she grabs a little girl to protect her, and they hide out in the water under one of the wicker baskets that they were catching the fish with. So they survive out, and you obviously get the impression that this happens a lot, or at the very least consistently, I should say. A little reference, if anybody out there has watched The Good Place, the main guy villager in this is played by Pillboy in that show. Shout out to Pillboy and Jason Mendoza, which is a very different role. If you watch The Good Place, this is a very different role for. I'm sure, I don't know if you've watched the show, but as you can tell, his name being Pillboy, this is definitely very different for him. But so then you see that you then cut back to the Razor Crest. And, Mando and Baby Yoda are kind of on the run now, obviously, from the Guild and from the remnants of the Empire, and from pretty much everybody, because everybody has their tracking fobs again. And so they find basically this pretty quiet planet, which, of course, you find out is the same planet that the village is on. So they land together there, and they head to get some food. So once you are in the tavern, or it looks like a couple places, like a couple of tents set up, basically, there is another person there that's like they're doing like some like laser belt fighting thing where they're like strapped together with like a belt or like a plasma beam or something, whatever it is. It's basically just like professional bar fighting. It kind of reminded me of in the first X-Men movie, like when we first are introduced to Wolverine, and he's like in the bar fight, basically, or in the like cage fight or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And so they sit down, they sit there, and then she comes up to them, and basically they have an interaction, and then the mystery character, who we find out is Cara Dune, sits down and she explains she's retired from the work because we find out that she was a a veteran of the Rebel Alliance. She was a shock trooper, a jump trooper, and that she was from Alderaan, obviously Leia's planet, Bail Organa's planet, blown up planet, and she basically uses the planet as a hiding place because after the New Republic was formed, she was basically relegated to protecting dignitaries and protecting like politicians and stuff.
Yeah.
And we never really find out what it was, but apparently something happened where she crossed the line. So she was like forced into retirement basically. So she just stays on this planet to lie low. And then, so the Mandalorian heads back, and then in that fight, obviously, is when we get the great soup moment. Yeah. Once again, a great shot on that. Yeah. So then Mando goes back to the Razor Crest. He's tinkering with it, ready to take off. And then we get the two villagers, one of the guys, and then also the guy Pillboy from. I'm just going to call him Pillboy because I don't know what his name was in this. But we get Pillboy and another kid saying that there's a threat coming to their village and that they need Mando's help because they recognize the Mandalorian armor and know that he's going to be willing to help them. So
not without some convincing.
No, not without some convincing. So they tell him about the threats and stuff, and he is not having any of it. But then they offer him lodging and food, and he says that he's going to need help. So then he goes and he finds Cara Dune. They head back to take on the task together. So basically, then that's when we get into this awesome scene with that woman from earlier in the episode talking to Mando, checking in on him, making sure he's all right. You can kind of tell immediately that there is some kind of a connection between these two characters.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You don't really know what it's being set up for. Mm-hmm. We still don't really know what it's being set up for. I remember when we first watched it back in December, I thought maybe it was like, oh, maybe at the end of the season, like he goes back to the village and settles down with her or something. But clearly that is not where this show is heading. So I wonder if she is ever going to come back, or if it was just something that, just these two kind of people who were kind of lost in life, just kind of had a great moment of like connection in this. Kind of a thing, again, kind of a Wolverine parallel, honestly, where it's like he could have chosen to settle down in this life, but he can't deny his greater purpose, his calling to serve other people and to make sure that other people are right. His basically his selflessness. And then this is when we get the conversation of taking the helmet off. She says, when was the last time you took that thing off? And he says yesterday, which, she's surprised at. But obviously, that kind of answers our audience question of like, well, does he take it off to eat type thing?
Yeah.
He takes it off to eat and to, do other stuff. And then she leaves. And this is the other great shot of the helmet is you see him looking out a window and you don't see his face, obviously, but you see that he does take the helmet off and put it down so that he can eat. And then after they eat, that's when we get into this crazy, straight out of Kurosawa, Seven Samurai, training the villagers scene.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? What do you think about the scene with, the helmet conversation and all that? And then what do you think about, getting into the training aspect?
Yeah. So the whole helmet thing, I like the conversation. I just don't, maybe you can like explain it to me better. Like I can kind of see it after watching the second time. He's like, well, I don't take it off in front of anybody. Okay, well then you're standing in front of a window and you take it off.
Yeah,
so that I couldn't tell if it was the writing or if it's just how they happened to actually like shoot it like that, and they were, they just left it in kind of like that. Which again, it also kind of like develops his character in a way because, he's like, I've never taken it off in front of people or nobody's seen my face since I was, the kids outside playing their age.
Yeah.
He said, because I'm not a Mandalorian, my parents were killed and they took me in, they saved my life. And, I've been grateful to them ever since. So, I mean, it almost kind of puts in your head. It's like, okay, well, that he, wasn't born on Mandalore. He's not, by blood a Mandalorian. So it's almost like there's a bit of conflict where, he wants to abide by the rules, but at the same time, he doesn't, I guess. Like even with like, escaping with, the bounty and everything, that he's supposed to just, give the client, and you're supposed to walk away after that. It kind of shows that he may, dress as a Mandalorian and he's been a Mandalorian since, when he was saved. He's still not fully, he's not blood Mandalorian.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that's going to be explored in season 2. Obviously, once again, still at this point, rumors and speculation, but I mean, they're going to be in it. I mean, let's be honest. If you have characters like Bo-Katan and Sabine coming back, they're whipping their helmets off every chance they can get. They're like, oh, I don't want to wear this mask.
Exactly.
I can't breathe.
Yeah, like that in Rebels. Rebels. Exactly. Like that's how it is. Like I feel like she only wears her helmet when she's fighting. That's about it. Like she doesn't wear a helmet like on the ship or anything.
Yeah. Also, I just want to say PSA: wear a mask.
Okay.
And Bryce Dallas Howard says that in the documentary. Again, if you're watching this show, spoilers for the documentary, spoilers for the show in general.
Yeah.
But I would definitely encourage you to watch the documentary. Probably when we're done reviewing all these 8 episodes, we're probably just going to do one episode dedicated to reviewing the whole documentary, like as a season. So we're going to talk more in depth then. But we'll definitely be bringing things up in these reviews, just because it does let a lot of insight into the show. That's kind of why we chose now to do the reviews. Is because now we have that kind of extra layer of info that we didn't have the first time around. Kind of a natural time to rewatch it.
Real quick, sorry to before you might have, I don't know if you'd like skipped the scene, but before they go into the whole training sequence, Mando and what's Gina Carano's character's name again? I'm sorry,
Cara Dune.
Cara Dune. They go and check out, and they see that it's an ATST.
Oh yes, yeah.
And they're like, we can't be an ATST. So then they go back to the villagers and like, well, time to leave. Better pack up and get out of here.
Yeah.
And they're, the villagers were like, well, my grandfather planted this, has been on this land. We've been on this land for, generations. And they're like, we're not leaving, which again is, to a T, like Seven Samurai, where it's like, the samurai come in, or obviously they like beg for the samurai's help.
And then the samurai,
Seven Samurai, like they never say like you have to leave,
but they say, hey, we gotta flood the place.
Exactly. We gotta ruin something here.
Yeah, if you ever watch Seven Samurai, spoilers.
Yeah, and again, it's not like Star Wars has a history of referencing Akira Kurosawa with because C-3PO and R2-D2 are from the two characters from Hidden Fortress.
Yeah,
so it's like it's nothing new. I thought. I don't really know where I was going with that.
Off of that though, I'm sorry, I did skip. I'm just glancing over at my notes, so sometimes I get out of order. Once again, it's a great comedy moment in this episode. Is their kind of banter where they're like, it's not gonna work, like we're not gonna be able to do this, and just the abruptness of when they cut back to the village and Mando just goes, so bad news, you're not going to be able to live here. Right? And they're just like, what? What? But also on a kind of sadder note and kind of a more intense note, if you're a major Star Wars fan, not even major, but just like if you've seen the movies and now you especially having watched Clone Wars, if you think about just that one line of saying, my grandfather, planted this pod, because like the houses they live in are like plants. Like they're like cut out plants.
Oh, okay, yeah. I never know. Okay.
Yeah, because he like points to the house and he says, "My grandfather planted this pod, that we live in." And you just have to think like that means that they were on this land through the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Like through they survived the Clone Wars on this land, and they survived the war against the Empire on this land.
Yeah.
So they're like.
Why can't we survive these like pillagers that happen?
Exactly, and they're like we're not giving we've outlasted on this land for 2 wars in the last 60 years. We're not gonna give up. Like we'd rather die than give up our life or give up our way of life and our land to these people. Which I think is just that one throwaway line. Like you can really dig into that and kind of think like, well, that really. Lens and then also there's kind of another one too where the main woman in the episode when he says who of you can shoot, she's the only one that raises her hand. And it's like, okay, what is the story there? You know what I mean? Like how does she is she from here? Did she move here?
I don't know if I was thinking about this and I've only seen Seven Samurai once. Toshiro Mifune's character, like the crazy guy, like he's he he wasn't a samurai and then he became one. That was I think that's his arc in that movie. It escapes me, but that's kind of who it reminded me of a little bit, but because he was a villager at one point and then he becomes a samurai later in the movie, and he helps a different this other village to fight off their pillagers. I kind of connected them in a way. For some reason, I don't really know why. Because in my head, I was like, the village that they're trying to save in the movie. I don't think anybody in that village has prior experience like they do in Mandalorian. Like there's no character or there's no citizen in that village that is like, oh, I've fought before in a war, or I've ridden a horse, or I've killed somebody with a spear. Unlike this show where obviously the woman is like, yes, I've I'm a good shot. You see that in the training montage. She's just blasting those pots and pans.
Pots and pans, yeah. All right, so then we get there. The plan is basically in where the lake is already, where the woman hid out in the very beginning of the episode. They say we're going to dig that even deeper so that when the ATST comes, me and Mandalorian and Cara Dune are going to draw it out so that it comes over here. And once it steps in the water, it's going to lose its footing and fall in and, break, blow up. Yeah. So that is the plan. They executed almost perfectly. Before it really kicks off, though, they have a conversation where she... Oh, hang on, actually. Let me make sure I'm getting this timing correct. I can't find in my notes where it is. So we're just going to talk about it real quick right now. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I can't remember if it's before the fight or after the fight. But he's talking to the woman saying, my place doesn't belong here, but the child does. Like, can you keep him here? Can you raise
That's
him?
after the fight.
Oh, that's after.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll talk about that in a second. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. So the fight breaks out. The ATST comes. And a great thing about the ATST is they really made it feel like an animal. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
They painted it. And stuff.
The red in the the eye holes, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it's like bright red lights inside the cockpit, so it's like eyes basically.
Yeah.
So they come in and again, just like an animal, like literally like something out of Jurassic Park. It's doing the walk and everything, and then it gets up to the lake and it puts its foot down and then it stops.
And this is something I want to actually touch on, which I thought was cool, where it's, in episode 6, you have the ATST. They're not easily, but they're pretty handily being taken down by Ewoks. This ATST, obviously there's a person controlling it, but they are not stupid.
No.
They see, they're looking around and they feel this little cliff and they go, hold on. If I take another step, I'm going to fall down this hole. So I'm going to wait here, flash my light, and see what's going on in front of me. Which I thought was kind of a cool touch. You're kind of redefining like what these machines are,
Yeah, because like if you come in with the expectation of what happens in episode 6, you're like, oh, these guys, they're just going to fall right in.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like it's going to work perfectly. And it really, again, it's just a little thing that lends water to how sophisticated and smart these pirates are, that they're not going to just fall for a simple trick like that. And also leading to the whole thing of the ATST being very like animalistic at the same time. So then big fight breaks out. The villagers are doing their training. They're taking out the guys, the ones that are getting through the barricades and stuff. And then Cara Dune manages to get a shot into the cockpit. Presumably takes out the driver. It like blows up the eye of the ATST. And then finally it takes the step and it stumbles forward, falls in the water, blows up just like they planned. Big hurrah, hurrah, the day is won. The villagers are, at least for now, safe. What is your thoughts on, them taking out the ATST and how all that went down?
I thought it was like it was definitely a cool action scene. I like, obviously you taught the villagers how to fight. You expect them to fight, which they end up doing, which I like. There's one part where, what did you say his name is in The Good Place? I think it's the same.
Hellboy.
I think we're talking about the same person. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's
the longer hair. He's the
And they're like, it's him and this girl that are hiding behind the pikes, and everybody else is like fighting. And the main woman villager is like, okay, go fight. Like they're literally just like standing there petrified, and she's like, hey, if they're all fighting, you better go fight too. But yeah, I thought it was a cool build up. I like when he takes the grenade and throws it in the eye of the ATST and it explodes. But yeah, they definitely got those pillagers. Definitely got those things.
Yeah. So then what I started talking about earlier was then after everything's done, Mando knows he's got to take off, but he goes up to the mother, the meeting woman, and says, my place is not here. I can't stay here, but this is the right place for him, for the child. Everybody loves him there. All the kids, we haven't talked about, but throughout the episode, all the kids are always playing with him and talking to him and having fun with him and stuff. So he's as much as it hurts Mando, he knows this is a good home. He's going to leave him there. And then all of a sudden, you think maybe it's a leftover pirate or something, but you see out in the woods, you see that somebody's lining up a shot. And first, you maybe think they're going to take out Mando, and they aim over and they get the child right in the sights, and you go, "Oh, I know!"
I remember the first time I watched this episode, I was like, "Wait, what?"
I was like, "What?" It was real rough.
Yeah.
But and then of course, typical movie TV show fashion, you hear a gunshot and everybody goes, "What? What was that?" So you look, and of course, they did not kill the child, luckily. And you see that Cara Dune took out the bounty hunter, and you know that he's a member of the guild because you see he's got the tracking fob for the child. And then right before he leaves, obviously, Mando now realizes he's got to take the child with him. The best place for him is with him because they're going to keep coming after him if he doesn't protect him. So what are your whole thoughts? And then, the episode ends. They leave the village, and Cara Dune stays behind at this point. What are your thoughts on the whole wrap up of the episode? Leaving, realizing that they're never really going to be safe until they end to some sort of whatever's going on here.
I thought it was. I liked the whole gunshot. You hear a shot and they pan away and nobody knows what's going on. That type of panic, which I don't know. Maybe when I first watched the episode, I was like, "Oh my god, they got him!" But
ladies and gentlemen,
we got him. But yeah, I liked the idea that they're never safe. You better keep running or they're gonna get you eventually. Which again, that just lends like I said about the first two episodes, they keep adding on to they just keep expanding the story. Not only is the universe already expansive, they could go anywhere, and they're gonna get tracked down somehow, some way. It's just about the idea that you would just have to keep moving until there's something happens.
I would say my final thoughts on it definitely be, like I said, out of the ones we've reviewed so far, I'd put this at number 2, behind episode 3. As the show overall, I wouldn't say it's my top 3 episodes. It's in my top 3 episodes, but it's definitely up there. It's at the higher end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
In terms of the
4 or 5, you think?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But yeah, in terms of that, I think solid episode. Once again, that's episode 4, titled "Sanctuary," directed by Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah.
So with that, I think that'll do it for this week's episode of the Planet Council. Again, sorry it's a little bit late here. Looks like we have no technical difficulties with this recording. So we'll get this edited. Probably going to be going up, like I said, at some point on Sunday. But with that, again, my name is Sean Monk.
And I'm TJ Cornwell.
And always remember, the Force will be with you, always.